Now there's 4 key items that you need to be thinking about when creating a better graphic for your clothing brand. These things include stuff like theme, type, style, and also element. And these are absolutely crucial in elevating your graphic from something like this into something like this. And I'm gonna walk you guys through how I do something similar for other people's clothing brands. Now, I'm a visual learner myself. That's why I made this a full process video, including how to make the official mockup / a realistic mockup so you guys can go straight to selling or straight to your website / design placement if you're selling this graphic. Focusing on document setup, we're working by 3000 width and 3600 height at a DPI resolution of no less than 300, and I'm working in an RGB color space. Now, one integral part about graphic design is your type is extremely important. People will gravitate towards it for context, and when it comes to streetwear, type is extremely important. Now, the one I'll be using here is called Dirty Old Town. Why? Because it's blocky and it has that sort of varsity style high school font, but it has a bit of character which I can then lean into for my graphic. To separate ourselves from the rest, we're gonna go ahead and just warp this. So just drag this down and play with the font until you're happy with it. Now at the top next to your cancel and go ahead buttons, so that's that X and that tick, you can go ahead and click that button and it's gonna allow you to input some warp options. Now me personally, I just go with the classic warp and then I just dumb it down just a bit, so lessen the effect because it is too heavy sometimes. And then I make some final adjustments by pressing Command T on my keyboard and warping it until I'm happy with the placement of the font. Usually I like to play with type in Illustrator, but this video is going to be solely in Photoshop. Now the first thing you want to do is basically convert your type into a smart object before you make any other adjustments. In case you want to go back, what you can do that's even better is make a duplicate. Next, you want to right click and head over into your blending options. And these are going to be your layer styles. This is where you make your adjustments. Now I have a bunch from other people and ones that I've created of my own. And now I love using my own because I made them and I know how to use them because I'm comfortable with them. And I usually start with the layer style because I can go ahead and use that as inspiration for the rest of the graphic, meaning colors. And changing layer styles is fairly easy. You just go into the options and you change colors. Now, as I'm doing this, you can go ahead and pause and copy the actual settings of each layer style that I've added to my actual type. Once I'm happy with this, I can go ahead and press OK. So we're going to go ahead and add a mask to our actual layer with our font in it. And I'm going to go ahead and go in with the black brush on that mask and add some texture. Now I'm using the Wave and Water brush set. It's completely for free. It's on Divine Art or whatever it's called. Here's a photo of what that looks like. And just go ahead and attack the actual font. Don't be shy. Another way you could go about this is adding a texture on top of the font, but I just find it's more personalized this way. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a new layer. With that new layer added, I'm going to go ahead and go in with a brush, and I'm using a drawing tablet as I speak right now because I want a sort of hand-drawn font look. Another thing you can do with font is you can make your own, and that is the ultimate flex when it comes to any sort of branding, poster work, etc. Having custom type literally elevates your whole design because people can see the actual work you've put in. Now, exactly like the other one, you can go into blending options and add in whatever you want. For this one personally, I'm just going to add a stroke and just a color fill and just change the color. That's it. Now, when it comes to these sort of theme of grunge, sort of New York style posters and graphics for t-shirts, they need to be extremely busy. And with that, you have what we call elements. You need elements in your design to help fill space and make a unique graphic, pulling in references from different pieces. Let's say this design, well, we're not going to say this because the design is based around a New York theme and I want a New York essence to the actual graphic. There's different ways I can fill space. The way I've chosen here is basically by using postage stamps. And I'm going to go ahead and create my version of these postage stamps so I can add them into the graphic. Head over to designbywill.com. Use code ASAP Rocky 40 because I have an ASAP Rocky poster here, and you'll get 40% off anything over $12.95 on my website for the next 3 days. Happy hunting. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in an artboard, and with this artboard I'm going to go ahead and drag in the files that I referenced. So I'm going to go ahead and drag these in right now, and then I'm going to go ahead and start building my elements within this artboard. We're going to be using the elliptical marquee tool just so we have a very perfect circle. Hold shift and drag as you do this, and then I'm going to go ahead and just fill that layer in with a red. Duplicate that layer and make it a bit smaller and center it with the one that's underneath. Next, I'm going to go ahead and hold command and select that layer, which is going to go ahead and reselect that circle. Next, I'll go in with an eraser and remove the selection from the bottom one, and now we have a perfect circle that's cut out and ready to use. Next, I'm going to duplicate that layer and make it a bit larger and center it with this artboard. As you can see, I'm trying to make one of those postage stamps, the blue one on the top right. Next, I'm going to go in with the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to go ahead and create those two lines. So that's easily done by just going ahead and selecting that. You don't have to hold shift or anything, and make a new layer and fill that layer in with red. All you have to do now is kind of duplicate this layer and drag it at the bottom. Now, the only shortcut I use is pressing T on my keyboard to activate the type box, which then you can add anything you want into this type box. For myself personally, I just went with a theme, so it was like international postage or AU ship or anything related to the brand's identity, and playing it on the whole theme of whatever you're trying to make. So if we're making postage stamps and your brand is Gunshooter 333, you can make the postage stamp Gunshooter 333 international shipping and just fill the space, make it look cool and make it look authentic. Now I'm going to show you the perfect use case for, I guess, assets. So I have this asset, it's called Oasis Stars. I think it's one of my first original assets, and I still use it to this day on graphics because it's just a good quick thing that I can just drag into Photoshop if I'm not using Illustrator. So since I'm designing this all within Photoshop, having that asset really saves me time. We're gonna go ahead and use the ellipse tool now because I want to add some type in this empty space within our postage stamp. So first thing is drag your ellipse tool out. If you have any strokes set to it, just go ahead and change it from shape to path, because if it's set to shape, it's gonna do the effect of the stroke that you have currently. So when it sets a path, it's going to be blank like this, and then head over into your type, and within your type you can go ahead and select type on a path, and then you just select the path that you're typing on and go ahead and add whatever text you want. Now if you want this type to go all the way around, it's kind of a guessing game on your font size and font thickness, and that just depends on how patient you are. But me personally, I don't really care about this, especially when I'm making badges like this, because I know I'm going to put effects on it. So I just want to fill the space as best as I can and just making the adjustments with the actual kerning of the type and just the sizing of it. So same exact steps for this one, but this one's a bit different because it's an oval shape, and I wanted to have like a sort of pinstriped referee sort of look, like the reference you see here with the circles and the stripes in the middle. So the way I went about it was, firstly, I had my stroke and I put a new layer on top, and then I filled that stroke in with a fill, any sort of fill, any color, which is red on red. You can't really see it here. But once I had finished and got my stripes all set, and I grouped everything, converted it into a smart object, I went ahead and selected that fill once again. So holding command and selecting that layer with the red fill. And once I had that red fill, I went ahead and used a mask to get that cut out, because I had tried a clipping mask, and since red on red won't work and I didn't want the backing to have any fill, it just worked best like this. Again, I'm creating a bunch of elements based around the theme of our brand design, which is a New York style t-shirt. So these are what we call elements. So I'm going to go ahead and use the magic wand tool for a selection for this mask, and I select the blue instead of the actual Statue of Liberty. There's too much values in there. And then I go ahead and right click and select inverse, and once I select inverse, it indirectly selects the Statue of Liberty. First thing I do is add in a threshold within the adjustment layers. I then head over into filter gallery and select the half tone dots, and then I make adjustments. So if you want your image to be detailed, you want to make your dots smaller. If you don't really care, make your dots much larger. But for me, since the dots are already set to really small, no adjustments need to be made. I just add in a new layer on top, go ahead and select color range, and then from color range here, it's just going to be set to black. And I'm just going to fill that new layer in with a black. Next, I'm going to go ahead and select the original layer and add a new layer on top. And I'm going to go ahead and fill this layer in with a color that I think represents the New York Statue of Liberty. So that could be like a dark green, a light green, whatever you want. But I feel like this color is perfect. Again, I select the original layer holding Command, and then I use that layer to make a color layer on top. We're going to show some more love to our elements. So first thing I want to do is add a threshold, select all these, and then convert them into a group, and then duplicate that group and convert that group into a smart object. Then I'm going to go filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and I'm going to go ahead and adjust it until I like how it looks. Going for like a ink bleed effect, well, sort of that look. To make it a bit more authentic, I'll add a mask to that converted smart object. I'm going to go ahead and go in with the wave and water brush set once again, and just make a little bit of a grunge aesthetic tear into these stamps. Again, just to make them a bit more authentic. Now let's go ahead and cut these out, and the best way to cut them out, drum roll please, make a new layer, select color range, make sure your color range is on black or the respected color, which is going to be black anyway, and fill that new layer in with black. Then you can go ahead and turn everything off, go in with a marquee tool or selection tool and right click and go ahead and start cutting out each individual stamp again. So just select it, right click, layer via cut, and that's going to cut it out for you. Now you're ready to use this within your graphics. Now, when you're working in the art style / theme of grunge, it doesn't really matter where you place things as long as they look aesthetic, because the whole thing of grunge is just anti-traditional design. Your goal is to fill the space, make it look unique, but also don't do too much where it's like, this is kind of ugly. But you just have to, balance. It comes down to balance, and you can't really teach this. People just have to have an eye for placement when it comes to these sort of graphics. Just so we have a bit of cohesion, I'm going to go ahead and right click the New York badge and select the color range and select one of the oranges from the type at the top and just add a bit of a stroke. Again, fill space. For the background, I'm going to go ahead and grab an American flag, because what's more patriotic than American flag? Nothing. Let's go ahead and add in the hue / adjustment layer just to drop down the color / saturation within the American flag, just too bright for the image that we have currently. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and add in the texture from Texture Labs. Now, this is Texture Labs Grunge 308, I believe, and you can go ahead and search this code within Texture Labs and you'll find it, or just go to Texture Labs where they have amazing, completely free textures. It's hard to compete with these guys. Textures are amazing. Now, this order of operation is very important. Firstly, you want to go ahead and add a mask to anything you're adding a texture onto. So add a mask first, and then go to select, color range, and then make sure to select all shadows. But I just realized we have all our other designs still on, which is not going to work. So make sure you turn all these layers off so it's just the texture by itself and it works a lot more effectively. So make sure you have everything off. Select, color range, go ahead and select shadows. Play with this until you're happy, because I didn't add a threshold. I'm just trying to get as much black values as I possibly can. Press OK, and then go to that mask that you made originally and fill that layer in with black. Delete the mask you just had on top, or the texture you just had on top, and add everything back. And now you have a complete background with a texture on it. So I'm going to go ahead and convert all the background adjustment layers, everything like that, into a smart object. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another mask. And then from this mask, I'm going to go ahead and remove / edit the actual background, just so it has, some high points, some low points, and it looks like a background, creating some depth with a brush that's set to dissolve, and it's just a very soft brush. Now we currently need to separate the foreground and the background, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a layer in between the background and the foreground, and I'm just going to go ahead and add, some coloring just to highlight one, the Statue of Liberty because we want that to be our focal piece, and this image is very, very busy. So the way we do that is basically just going with a brush, again, that's set to dissolve, and it's a very soft brush. And I'm just gonna go ahead and just play around, add it in points here and there to, you know, again, have a bit of separation. Now you can see the design piece start to come together, and now all we have to do is add any final touches before we add our final adjustments and color layers. First thing I did was make that layer blue. Again, just stands out a bit more, and plus we have no other blue except for our archive, well, in that shade of blue, and I wanted to tie it all in because everything needs to be cohesive, everything needs to be talking to everything, especially when it comes to design. On that exact note, I'm going to go ahead and go into the blending options of one of the stamps and just play around with it until I'm happy. And I'm going to repeat that step for the other stamp as well. So just adding stroke and a color, that's about it for both of them. Now this little space in between Internet Archive and the New York, where I have the New York in orange, is bugging me. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a new layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and go in with a brush and make a custom font. If you guys can't read that, it says the land of the free. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and add a color overlay and just a stroke. And then I'm just going to go ahead and press Command T and adjust this until I'm happy with it. To tie it all together, I'm going to go ahead and add some textures. The first one is going to be 256 by Texture Labs. It's just like this grunge half tone pattern dot. I'm going to set that one to Soft Light. Next texture is going to be Texture Grunge 301, and I'm going to go ahead and set that one to, overlay. And once I set that to overlay, I'm going to go ahead and put the fill at 48/50 because I see it seems to be still too dark. Again, to add a bit more grunge, I'm going to add Texture 308. You can find all these textures that I'm talking about on Texture Labs. I'm just referring to the code so you can put them in the search bar. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add a mask to the group of all our designs put together. And I'm just going to go ahead and select color range, select black, and fill that mask in with a black. Once we do that, we have a grunge cutout of our design. And now the front piece is coming together and we have some uniform. We can go ahead and just apply this to our back graphic. Talking about back graphic, this one's going to be fairly easy. Firstly, let's go ahead and select our typeface, so Internet and Archive. Lucky for us, we spent all that time at the beginning building elements that we can just use for our back graphic. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag them in the back and arrange them until I'm happy. Another important step is we're going to go ahead and remove any of the effects / layer styles on our type. So just turn off the effects or go ahead and remove them manually. Once you're happy with the placement of your back graphic, see, this is why it's very important to spend all your time doing the front, because you can just use everything with the back. Just go ahead and copy over the textures that we added at the end, create a clipping mask for that design, and you're done. Using the artboard tool, we'll make one more artboard, and then I'm going to go ahead and adjust this artboard so it's the width of an arm print. So just dragging that all the way up and extending it a bit, and we're ready to make our arm / sleeve graphic. So off rip, the font I'm using is called Riska Graph, and I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to make a quick arm graphic for your t-shirt / hoodie. So first thing, you just need an intimidating sort of font or a very heavy font that's within theme. It's graffiti, it's New York, it's still within theme. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab our custom typeface for Archive, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it onto this artboard. From here, I'm just going to go ahead and align it so it says Internet Archive still, but we're in a different font. I'm going to go ahead and change the outline width to whatever color we set our actual Internet typeface to. So basically the premise is if our typeface for Internet is orange, our outline / stroke color for our Archive is going to be orange too. Next, we're going to go ahead and drag one of our elements that we designed at the very beginning. And then essentially we're just going to go ahead and add a stroke, same exact stroke as we're doing for Archive. Again, orange on white. And now we have a sleeve design done. And essentially you could use this method for shorts, things like hats. All you have to do is get the different elements / logos you've made during this process and apply them to different mockups. All that's left is to get every sort of texture grunge effect that we've done for the rest of the other designs and apply them to the sleeve graphic. So that's just simply copying and paste it and adding it to the artboard and making any adjustments like width, and you have your designs complete. Now I'm going to show you guys exactly how to make the mockups. My computer decided to not record, so I'm going to run through this process again. Firstly, find your image. Go ahead and go over to Balenciaga. They have really high quality images for their mockups / flat lay photos, and they're set to like 3000 by 5000 resolution. Using the patch removal tool in Photoshop, we're going to go ahead and select this Planet Earth logo and just drag it to an area where it's blank. And now we have a complete blank mockup. Now it's time to cut this bad boy out. For the sake of this video, I just use quick selection and press Q on my keyboard, which brings it up in this view mode. And I went ahead and went in with a black brush and removed any excess. Again, this is longer than just cutting it out properly the first time. After I had done this, press Q again, which brings you back to normal. And then I created a mask and cut out the actual mockup. Now, the way you change the color of a mockup properly is use gradients. Gradients allow you to get every single value and put it in. So as you can see here, I just set the gradient to a gray, which made a sort of gray hoodie. So you just play into the values to the direct left. So far left is where your shadows are going to be, and where you see the white point, that's where all your highlights going to be. So you just apply that logic to it. So if you want to make your shadows extremely dark, you just add more darkness to it. And it's a game of like elements and fill, but this only works if you have a high quality image. Now, me personally, I went ahead and set the blend mode for our graphic to overlay. And that just set the perfect tone for me to see the shadows in the hoodie, but also see our graphic clearly. I went ahead and warped it just a tiny bit so it could fit the mockup a bit better, but I wouldn't do this because it won't reflect how your print is going to look. And then I just went ahead and added a mask to our actual mockup, went in with the black brush on that mask and removed our design for where the actual zipper is, just to add a bit more reflective / realistic look. I also did it for the gradient because the gradient obviously changed the color of the zipper. So just doing that added the extra step to make the mockup look a bit more realistic. So the hoodie again was looking a bit too light. So I went back into the actual gradient map, and going back into the gradient map, I was able to adjust it just a bit so I can make the actual hoodie a bit darker. Also, my shadows are not looking realistic at all because they're more so gray washed than black washed. So I went ahead and added another point and added black, and that just completely sealed the deal and made the mockup look extremely realistic. But again, play with these values until you're happy with the color that you have. A great way / a great source of trying to match it to the most realistic point is having an actual gray hoodie with you, so you can actually reflect what the colors are looking like. Again, for the sleeve designs, I just set them to overlay and created a clipping mask for all my designs onto the hoodie, and the mockup was done. All you have to do is just apply this exact process to the back. And that's exactly what we did. But one thing that saves a lot of time is we don't have to make the gradient map again. We can just copy it from artboard to artboard and just create a clipping mask on the other hoodie. Even with the typefaces like the sleeve designs, we don't have to do anything, just copy and paste it over because they're already set to the right blend mode. They just have to make sense on a mockup wise, so it's going to be reflected if it's on the back. And once you have that, your hoodie / design is now complete. Design overall, I give this one a solid 7 out of 10. Obviously, I think we could have done it a little bit better with the type, but I just wanted to show you guys this full process. I actually loved how the front graphic turned out overall. Looks really nice, especially on this Balenciaga distressed mockup. Just matches the aesthetic that we're going for perfectly. And overall, I think that brought it up a bit. I think I might push it up to an 8 or 9 out of 10, honestly. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you guys when I see you.